Recently, I got into this crime drama set in Victorian Canada, Toronto to be specific, about a police detective who's very into science and happens to meet a truly staggering number of significant historical figures from the period, including, but not limited to, Nikola Tesla, H.G. Wells, Alexander Graham Bell, Harry Houdini, Thomas Edison, Teddy Roosevelt, and Winston Churchill. I'm talking about Murdoch Mysteries, in case that wasn't obvious. Now, why do I want to talk about it? Well, you see, it does actually have some reoccurring queer characters, but they're not good? That's harsh. 3 out of 4 of them are actually perfectly fine. It's their storylines I take umbrage with. Suffice it to say, there will be spoilers. So, let's get started, shall we? I'm actually gonna start with the very first presence of a queer person in the show, episode 5 of season 1, Till Death Do Us Part. Unsurprisingly, the first gay man on the show is a murder victim, and the investigation into his murder leads to the discovery of his identity and some painfully homophobic actions taken by the constabulary at Station House 4, leading to the suicide of the man's lover because the police cannot possibly fathom that his death might be unrelated to his sexuality. I mean, granted, it's not completely unrelated, but it's largely unrelated. At the start of this episode, Murdoch is clearly showing his devout Catholicness, and it's really only after Dr. Ogden tears him a new one about how homosexuality is natural, actually, that he even stops calling gay men sodomites. In general, while the episode isn't exactly a pleasant viewing experience for me, I don't really have a problem with it. It was the Victorian era, homophobia was rampant, and it's entirely naive to think that our cast would be free of it. Especially considering our main character is, as previously mentioned, a devout Catholic. And he also learns better, which is another reason why I don't fully despise this episode. But it's not until later that the show's queer rep steps out of the realm of just one-off murder victims or suspects. Counting in order of introduction, James Gillies, introduced in episode 7 of season 2, Big Murder on Campus; Percival Giles, introduced in episode 13 of season 4, Murdoch in Wonderland; Dr. Emily Grace, introduced in episode 1 of season 5, On the Waterfront Part 1, and finally Lillian Moss, aka Helen Walker, introduced in episode 8 of season 8, High Voltage. The first of these is unfortunate, to say the least, because James Gillies is a notorious serial killer and the closest thing Murdoch has to an arch-nemesis right up until his presumed death in episode 9 of season 7, A Midnight Train to Kingston. Not really the kind of representation anyone is asking for. And there's the fact that he's only really confirmed as gay literal seconds before his presumed death. When Murdoch has him pinned and he asks the detective if he won't be even a little bit sad that it's over, and then kisses him before promptly throwing himself off the bridge they find themselves on and into the shallow river water below. But that wasn't enough for them. Oh no. The one single time I would be absolutely fine with any and all, well, we can't really be sure, can we? Arguments. They literally drag him out of his presumed grave 3 seasons later to show back up for one episode just to drive home the metaphorical nail in the coffin of any argument that Gillies wasn't in love with Murdoch in his own extremely twisted way. Because in the episode he harkens back to that moment and confirms that yes, Detective Murdoch is the object of his admiration and ardor. So, yeah, he's gay. There's no denying it. Unfortunately, because of this, he also manages to do a brief stint as the horribly disfigured/disabled villain, so just checking off all the bad trope boxes with this one, ain't ya? Seriously though, I've seen sexual tension between arch-nemeses. I've seen it unintentionally written, I've seen it reciprocated, and as was the case here, I've seen it one-sided. James Gillies didn't show up nearly enough for any inclination he felt towards Murdoch to become clear. That kiss on the bridge came completely out of left field, and I will never understand why they felt the need to do that. Any which way, for the series' first reoccurring queer character, James Gillies really does make an abysmal first impression. Next up, we have Detective Giles, later Chief Constable Giles. I actually don't have a problem with him, nor do I really have much to say. He's just kinda an old gay man who's never been able to trust anyone enough to take a lover again after he thought the man he was in love with in his youth betrayed him. His story is heart-wrenching and an unfortunately true reflection of the times he lived in. We learn he's gay when an investigation into a skeleton found under Station House 4 leads to the discovery that the victim had a photograph of him and his lover and was planning to ruin his career. He's not the murderer, though. He just helped hide the body, so he's still alive. His career was just ruined, and he went to jail. And, of course, the fact that he is gay only added time to his sentence because life is a fucking nightmare. So, in short, we learn he's gay, and then he promptly gets almost entirely written out of the show. He shows back up for one episode in the beginning of season 9, but otherwise he just vanishes completely out of the story. In general, I like him, but I don't like how little we see of him, and I don't like this series' apparent pattern of revealing a character's sexuality like some kind of twist ending and then drop-kicking said character out of the lineup, never to be touched again. In general, Percival Giles is such a minor character that to advertise Murdoch Mysteries by pointing to him as queer rep would be the height of false advertising. Moving us on to the final two, who I really do have to talk about together. Dr. Emily Grace and Lillian Moss. Dr. Grace starts her on-screen career as Dr. Ogden's assistant in the morgue. She is one of the main cast from season 5 until season 8. At first, she is courted by and returns the affections of Constable Crabtree, but they have a falling out thanks to one Leslie Garland. The less said about him, the better. Anyway, in season 8, she makes the acquaintance of one Lillian Moss, and they grow close. The kind of close which will have queer audiences squinting at the screen, wondering if they're being queer-baited or if the show is actually doing what we think it's doing. But lo and behold, the show is actually doing what we think it's doing. After a confrontation with Inspector Brackenreed in which he tells her to grow up and stop being gay, Dr. Grace basically goes, "Fuck you, I'm gonna be even gayer," and actually gets together with Lillian. At which point the show promptly, completely drops any interest in spending any significant time exploring their relationship. And then Lillian suggests they move to London, and Emily eventually agrees, and they make plans to move to London. All of this, of course, is mildly disappointing. Oh, we got an actual queer couple? Oh, you're not gonna show us any of them being a couple on screen. Oh, they're being immediately written out of the show. Ah, well, could be worse. They seem happy. I hope they have a good future in London. But no. No, they do not. Lillian dies in episode 3 of season 9, literally the day before the two of them were to move to London. I want to take a moment here to stop and acknowledge the visceral fear that I experienced at the beginning of this episode. Because there are several things setting off alarm bells here. It starts on Emily and Lillian getting ready for the day. This, in and of itself, is odd, considering the show's utter disinterest in this relationship after they got together. They're happy, they're discussing their plans for London, and there's a very mildly ominous track running under the whole thing. It's a classic, look how happy they are. One of them is going to die now, setup scene. But, of course, it's different here. Because with any cishet couple that I like that gets a scene like this, I might be sad, I might curse a bit, but I won't feel that visceral, gut-twisting fear that this scene inspired in me. I won't sit there and beg an already scripted, filmed, edited, and aired episode not to do what I know it's going to do. I won't have to pause and get up and walk away to steel myself before I can even bear to continue watching the episode. It's only after Lillian's death that we even get any cute couple scenes of her and Emily in flashback sequences through the episode as her murder is solved and her past comes to light. And at the end of the episode, Emily continues with her plans to move to London, writing her out of the show too, leaving us midway through season 10, technically, but really, in the beginning of season 9, with the show's 4 canon queer characters in order, hanged, in jail, moved across the Atlantic, and shot. So, like, not great. Since then, there have been no new queer characters, and we're now entering season 13. Last time we saw James Pendrick, in season 11, he was acting suspiciously bisexual, but that's entirely just my reading. Nothing's been confirmed there, and we haven't seen him since. And it seems like my dreams of a bi George Crabtree will never be realized. Not that I ever had much hope there. The worst part is that, discounting James Gillies, the series actually could have had a really good, diverse lineup of queer characters. They do have a really good, diverse lineup of queer characters. They just did absolutely nothing interesting with them and only ever gave them tired, damaging storylines. In general, really, Murdoch Mysteries seems to want to have their cake and eat it too when it comes to representation on their show. Their queer characters have all had their sexualities revealed and then been quickly written out of the show in various ways. Their black characters never seem to stay around for more than a few seasons. Given how the whole Violet Heart thing is going, I doubt she'll last more than a few seasons, and either which way, she's kind of, yikes! And the show did absolutely nothing with the Johnstons, even while the Breckenreeds were on the outs, so that seems to be a pattern they're sticking with. Their entire central cast is white and presumably cishet. I have more to say on this subject, but that's mostly gonna center around one specific character, so I think I'll keep that for another video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you stick around. Bye.